Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Selby series. Selby is one of 11 subdivisions of the county of North Yorkshire. It's made up of 74 civil parishes, a lot of which are very small. Which one are we in this week? Welcome back to Selby, everybody. I am in love with this village. It is fantastic. There's loads of things here which make this one pretty. Flowers all over the place. There's a wonderful village green with a pond that's got a fountain, and it's just so welcoming and so nice. And its name is Wistow. This Selby episode is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find a link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to the first of 3 villages with the name Wistow in England. The other 2 are located in Cambridgeshire and Leicestershire, but this is the North Yorkshire version. This is a small village but a huge parish covering a vast swathe of land to the north of Selby. It was historically part of the West Riding of Yorkshire until it was transferred to North Yorkshire in 1974. Wistow can trace its origins back to the times of the Danish invaders. It was originally known as Wykestow or Wykestow, and it means a dwelling or a camp in a wet situation. We'll discuss why the wet situation was a thing as we get into the episode. By the 12th century, this was a well-established community, reliant on fishing and farming for its livelihood. Through the centuries, the landscape has changed both literally and figuratively for Wistow. It used to have a station in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and in the late 1970s it was part of the Selby coalfield. These days it's just a beautiful village set in the most idyllic corner of Selby, far enough away from civilization to be truly rural, yet close enough to Selby itself to be within easy reach for commuters. It's not got a lot of claims to fame. That said, William Thompson, a viticulturist credited in California with the development of the Thompson seedless grape variety, was born and raised in Wistow. Let's see what else this one has to offer. Our journey around Wistow doesn't begin in the village. Wistow Parish is absolutely huge, much bigger than just the village. The village sits in the north of the boundaries. To the southwest and to the southeast, the land Wistow covers is predominantly agricultural. You'll not get much more agricultural than where we are right here. This is Wistow Lordship. Wistow Lordship is effectively a handful of farms which sit on a spur of land adjoining both Selby and the River Ouse. In centuries past, all this was a combination of marshland and waste ground. The river was also in a different position. These days, the Ouse runs to the east of Wistow, a long way from the village. Historically, they were much closer, with Wistow sitting on a sharp bend. The lordship has a viewpoint where the old course of the Ouse can still be traced with the naked eye. Mostly though, the lordship is rich, fertile farmland now, thanks to underlying alluvial soils. That's what you call good quality farmland, and it is so good to see. Okay, we are now in Wistow, and our start and our end point is here at the village green. How beautiful is this, people? Let's go. Our start point is the gorgeous Wistow village green with its lovely pond and fountain. It's hard to believe now, but Wistow was once a thriving village. Local industry relied a lot on the river. Wistow has had in the past a community of sailmakers, and the Ouse was also helpful for the irrigation of both daffodil and tulip farms. In front of us here is the manor house, which dates back to the 1780s. For over 175 years it was lived in by the Backhouse family. It's on Pinfold Hill, and the clue's in the name for that one. Wistow must have a chippy, because at the minute all I can smell on the air is the aroma of fish and chips, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm assuming there is one in this village, unless it's somehow wafting on the breeze from Cawood, but I really don't think that's happening. It's too far away. Right, okay, we're heading this way next, over this little green, Prospect Place. There's a footpath at the end of this. It takes us to another housing estate. We'll eventually come round in a loop round here, back to this point, and along Pinfold Hill, and then we'll explore the rest of the village up there, which is where I assume that chippy is. You'll have noticed by now that Wistow is a nice mix when it comes to old and new builds. The diversity of building styles doesn't detract from Wistow's character. If anything, it adds to it. A little segue through some of that housing brings us to a footpath which leads onto the Wistow Jubilee playing field, which is flanked by the enormous Jubilee Hall and a decent sized play area. Alongside this we have the Wistow Tennis Club. The club hold open play club nights on Monday and Thursday evenings on 3 all-weather courts with floodlights. And outside the Jubilee Hall is a rabbit hutch. You might not be able to read this, but the sign says Star Library coming soon. One would assume then this is what will pass for Wistow's book exchange. Well, I guess if you're not going to have a rabbit, that's one way to use a rabbit hutch, isn't it? Okay, so that's the Jubilee Village Hall and the playing field. Now we're going this way, down this road here. After walking along Lordship Lane, we have Wistow Parochial, the village primary school. This was built in 1876 by voluntary subscription. Selby High School is the nearest secondary school. Right next door we have the Old Vicarage. This has recently been on the market, having last been sold in 2019 for way above the average house price for the village as a whole. With the vicarage comes a church, usually, and Wistow is no exception. We're now on George Street, where we get a good look at All Saints, but I was much more taken by the adjoining Ginnel. Check this, what a lovely name for a little street, or a little Ginnel in this case. Skittergate. Brilliant. I'm going to walk up this for a little while. I believe it turns back on itself over there. Hopefully there's a way into the church up there. My original route was going to use a gate that's over there, but I actually want to walk up here and see where this goes. The answer was not really anywhere exciting. Skittergate leads to a small street which isn't properly paved, which runs alongside the church to the rear. Luckily though, there was a gate here. All Saints Church is a Grade 1 listed building which originally dates from 500 AD. The current building though dates from 1213, and its tower was completed by the Normans in the 15th century. It continues to hold community services, and it has 3 functioning bells. It began life as St Hilda's Chapel, dedicated to a Scandinavian saint, further enhancing this place's Danish roots. All Saints has some interesting artifacts inside it. Notably, there's some pagan symbols. One is an inscribed cross resembling coiled serpents, a pagan symbol of wisdom. Leaving the church behind, albeit only briefly, we're taking this footpath next up to Hilltop Road, and along the way it would appear the local school children had all woken up. So right here, we're around the back of the school. You might be able to hear some of the school children in the background. They're literally just behind this fence. Okay, we're following this footpath though, away from the school. This will take us to another little residential cul-de-sac, which will then turn left back onto the main road through Wistow, and we'll eventually come around the front of the church, see the Methodist chapel, and a few other bits and bobs, and that chippy as well, which I now know where it's located, so I'll be able to show you it. This building intrigued me. You can make out Firth Transport above the door. A bit of digging online and I found this is Plantation Garage, the base of Firth Wistonian Coaches, a coach hire company. Speaking of transport, in a short while we're off down Station Road to catch the site of the former Wistow railway station, which provided the village with a passenger rail service from 1898 to 1929. Not before we finish walking around the place though. Our next job is to walk up Church Hill towards the village centre, and on the way we pass some lovely flowers. Wistow keeps itself looking nice. So something that's maybe a little bit misleading, this street is called Church Hill, and we saw Pinfold Hill earlier, and neither of them are really hills, to be honest with you. They're slight inclines, but they're next to nothing. They're virtually flat. So if you come here, don't be thinking, oh, you've got to slog yourself up a hill. You don't. It's fairly easy, this. The pub here is called the Black Swan, which is a cask mark accredited inn. It boasts a large beer garden and a playground, ideal for those warm sunny days we get once in a blue moon. More and more places need one of these things, but that's just my opinion. It's a clothes bank, and you'll find this in the Black Swan's car park. Now we're at the front of All Saints Church. These are the gates I originally was going to use. They're a memorial to James Cottingham, the headmaster of Wistow School between 1913 and 1942. At the front of the churchyard is the War Memorial in the style of a Celtic wheel. Wistow had casualties in both World Wars, 18 in World War I and 9 in World War II. The memorial was renovated in 1949. The parish notice board is here as well, and that's Wistow off the Selby list. It's scary to think there's only a handful left now. This one's easily been one of the loveliest too. Now, if I'd have stuck to my original route, you would have seen this a little bit earlier. So the chippy I was talking about is called the Fat Friar, and it's right there opposite the church. And on the other side of the road, we've got the Methodist Church, Wesleyan Chapel, 1873. Is that? Yeah, 1873 I think that says above the window in the centre. Wistow Methodist Church works in partnership with All Saints Church. Together, the United Church involves the whole community and provides activities and a meeting place for all ages. The Fat Friar has recently changed hands. As such, it used to be known as Wistow Fish and Chip Shop. TripAdvisor has some absolutely glowing reviews of this place. I rate the smell 5 stars. Now we're back to the green again. 2 things of note in this shot here. It's a bike, so that suggests the Tour de Yorkshire has been through here, and this was still decked out in Jubilee colours. And whilst Wistow has no standalone post office now, it retains a pillar box on the green. This kind is very rarely seen in rural villages. There are more than 150 recognised pillar box designs in the UK. And we're back at the village green where we began. It's not a very big village, Wistow, to be honest with you. It's only taken me, as a rough guess without looking at Strava, about 45 minutes. So it's not a massive place by any stretch of the imagination. And it looks like this village green is where the Christmas tree is usually every year. I imagine that stays there all year round and just gets lit up at Christmas time. In fact, I can tell it's a Christmas tree because, look down here, there's an electricity point. So that'll be what powers the lights and makes Wistow look fabulous in the winter time. Okay, time for me to hop back into the car We're not quite finished with Wistow because even though the village is quite small, the parish itself covers a huge amount of area. We've seen Wistow Lordship already, but if you go to the west, there's at least 2 other things to catch, and I'm going to make sure I catch them both. Before I do that though, you guys need today's picture bit. So there are at least 2 more things to catch here in Wistow, and here we're at the site of one of them, and the landmark in question is that building right there. That is Station Cottage, because this is where the railway line used to be. Wistow was the sole intermediate station of the short Cawood, Wistow and Selby Light Railway, which was connected to the North Eastern Railway at its southern end. Whilst passenger numbers were unexceptional for a rural village, Wistow Station was important for goods. It featured a long loading platform of varying heights to facilitate loading and unloading. Okay, next up is Wisto Mine. You see, Wistow used to be part of the Selby coalfield, and this here was the site of the mine. Now, if you look on Google Maps, you'll see that this is pretty much an abandoned site. There's nothing really to see. It's just the old mine buildings standing derelict, and mostly the car park is just empty. These days it's a bit different. It's clearly in use again, and it seems it's used as some kind of storage for trailers. You can see an Asda lorry just there, and there's another gate up there which I passed a few seconds ago. Plenty of trailers can be seen from that. Let's talk a bit about the Wistow Mine. Wistow Mine was part of the Selby Super Pit, which had 6 pit heads at Rickhall, Gascoigne Wood, Whitemoor, Stillingfleet and North Selby, as well as here. All coal mined here was brought to the surface at Gascoigne Wood, which was a drift mine. The total amount of coal the Super Pit mined was 121 million tonnes. Wistow was the last of the 6 pits to begin working. It lasted until May of 2004, although the coalfield had run at a loss since the late 90s. Wistow Mine has not been redeveloped, and it's now used as a storage facility for redundant HGV trailers. Okay, and lastly, we need to drive to Bishop's Wood, which is a nature reserve, which is still within Wistow Parish, but really, I don't understand why it is. It should really belong to something like Biggin or to Hambleton, because it's a long way to the west of Wistow, and we need to drive to it because there's no way I can walk it from here. Let's go and find it. This then is Bishop Wood, an area of 340 hectares of mixed woodland. The forest is leasehold land secured by the Forestry Commission between 1921 and 1953. It was previously managed woodland, having originally been felled during World War I. The forest is situated in the Humber Head levels. Yes, they do stretch this far to the west. It's one of the largest woodlands in the levels. It's planted predominantly with poplar, pine and sycamore trees, but native trees such as alder and oak can also be found here. So there's also a small stream here that runs through the wood. It's not the biggest one in the world, but it's a nice addition. There you have it, it's just at the entrance. And this is a lovely little sanctuary. If it was blazing hot right now, the cover these trees provide, the shade that these trees provide, would be oh so very welcome. But thankfully it's not blazing hot right now. It's just nice, no matter where you are. But I imagine that this would be a good place to come if it was, if the temperature was, you know, getting on for 30 degrees. It'd be a nice place just to come and to chill out for a little bit, literally. So yeah, there you go. That's the parish of Wistow. There's nothing much more to show you here. I think I've pretty much covered it all. I do need to drive back into Wistow now to pick up a village sign, because I haven't got that for the thumbnail for this video yet. It's the one thing I'm still lacking. Of course, you will have seen it at the beginning of the video, but as of right now, filming this shot, I don't have it. So I'm going to drive back into Wistow and get that. I think on the way, I'll put the camera on the dash just to show you how big this place is, because the road runs right through it. Keep a lookout on the right for Selby Park Leisure. That's one thing I haven't touched on. It's literally just up there to the right, so we'll catch that on the way out. But other than that, this has been the parish of Wistow here in Selby, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out. Selby Park Leisure on the right.